I thought about doing the gritty for the intro to this video in celebration of Jaire hitting it yesterday, but what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Yes, this video taking place after the Green Bay Packers beat the Minnesota Vikings in rather convincing fashion yesterday, and now we are turning our attention forward to the Detroit Lions. Today, I'm going to be talking about shoutouts and get-outs for the Green Bay Packers coming off that huge win against the Vikings. But first, a bit of news for you. If you haven't heard yet, the timing of the Packers-Lions game for Week 18 has now been determined. Yes, they are going to be playing on Sunday night football. Yeah, that's right. Packers back in primetime under the lights in Lambeau Field, determining their playoff fate. Now, I know there's some thoughts about the Packers and Lions game being Sunday Night Football. A lot of people thought that would be at the same time as the Seahawks and Rams game because the Seahawks, Packers, Lions, all of their playoff fates are very intermingled. And the thinking from some around the league that I've seen talk about this was that if the Lions and Seahawks don't play at the same time, because they're very intertwined, if they don't play at the same time, that it's not exactly fair for Week 18. But I think ultimately the NFL was looking at their options for Week 18 and saying, all right, maybe Baltimore-Cincinnati has a lot of weight for the playoffs, maybe this one, maybe. But the allure of having Green Bay in a win and in situation in a divisional matchup against the Detroit Lions, who are just trying to get to the playoffs, I think it was just way too much of an allure for the NFL. So here we are, Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions, playing on Sunday Night Football next weekend. Just to recap the playoff scenarios here, obviously for the Green Bay Packers, it's the one that matters most to us. They win, they're in. That's it. All they got to do is just win. Beat the Detroit Lions, and you're in the playoffs. That's it, right? Well, for the Detroit Lions, it's a little bit more complicated. For the Lions, they not only have to beat the Packers at Lambeau, but they also must have the Seattle Seahawks lose. The Seahawks going against the Rams. For the Seattle Seahawks to make the playoffs, they've got to beat the Rams, but then they also have to have the Packers lose. Packers are in the driver's seat to get that number 7 spot in the playoffs. So, and they certainly have momentum on their side. But let's not pretend like Detroit doesn't have any either. So lots and lots of things to play out in this Week 18 matchup, but very, very exciting. Under the lights in Lambeau in prime time. Yeah, it's time. I'm already so excited. But before we move completely on to Detroit, let's just talk a couple things about the game yesterday. How is it that the Packers completely and utterly destroyed the Vikings? And I don't just mean on the football field. I mean, if you have dove into Reddit or Twitter or Facebook, I checked all of them today on the Vikings side of the world. They are melting down. I'm sorry to say it. Look, I mean, I'm going to cover a couple of the things here. And of course, it's not everybody, right? Just like in the Packer fandom, you have people who are always reasonable, people who just want their team to do well. And then you have the people who lose their freaking minds and make up a lot of stuff. And it's just kind of funny to watch this time happen. So I'm going to be talking about a little bit of what's being said over there. But yeah, I mean, understand, even Justin Jefferson following the game yesterday was talking about how Jaire should have been flagged for a taunting penalty. No, them's not the rules. He should not have been. So just a lot of a lot of emotional damage occurring in Minnesota today, and I'm very much here for it. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit as well. But first, what I really want to give you first is just a quick recapping of PFF grades. Top 5 on defense, top 5 on offense. That can help guide our discussion a little bit as to who really stood out. I know PFF is not perfect. I say this every single time that I quote all of their numbers. I know it's not perfect. However, it is one of the better metrics that we have, one of the more NFL team accurate metrics that is in existence for us to reference how the NFL may view the play of these guys. Certainly more knowing than your average fan. So, on the defensive side of the ball, number 1, Kenny Clark with an 89.9 grade. That's elite. Rudy Ford with a grade of 83. Very, very good. TJ Slayton finally getting more playing time, and it's showing out. 80.2 of a grade for TJ Slayton. Jaire in his shutdown game, 77.7, and Rasul Douglas, 71.6. On the offensive side of the ball, not quite so high across the board, but still. Top offensive grade was Mercedes Lewis, 90.7. It's just beautiful. Next up would be Aaron Jones at 77, Al Lazard at 72, Romeo Doubs 71.7, and then Aaron Rodgers 71.6. So ultimately one of their highest graded games of the year, without a doubt. Some really interesting stats coming out of this one. Normally, too, I cite some of the snap counts for a number of guys to really get a gauge on what the Packers did. In this game, because for the final few minutes, they were playing more backups. It was really just garbage time. It's just not going to be as accurate as it's been for a long time. And it was pointed out to me by a good friend of mine and a listener on Facebook that this game was never even as close as the final score. I mean, 41-17. It's unfathomable that a 41-17 game, that the numbers of the score don't represent how close the game was, right? The Packers cruised through most of this game. And that's even following the blocked punt and then the early deficit. So really, really remarkable stuff. So let's dive into shout-outs and get-outs. As always, if you are a new subscriber here, thanks so much for checking out Lombardi Time Brews. Share around the video, help grow the community a little bit. We are now up and over 330 subs. I was just asking to get to 300 a couple videos ago, so thanks so much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being a part of the community. Don't be afraid to comment, send me a message, whatever it is. I know I'm not always the quickest to respond to comments if life gets in the way, but still, thank you. Thank you sincerely for being here on this journey with me. So let's get into shout-outs, get-outs. The first get-out, and this is what I was referencing earlier. This is the first get-out I'm going to talk about today. Minnesota Vikings fans who are peddling conspiracy theories. Y'all need tinfoil hats because it's getting dumb. So I'm just going to say, here's first get out. Minnesota Vikings fans and their conspiracy theories. Here's the number one conspiracy theory that I have seen peddled. This one really started on Reddit. It's getting pushed around a lot. Even Kevin O'Connell kind of touched on it. Yeah, Minnesota Viking head coach Kevin O'Connell touched on it a little bit after the game yesterday. Others have touched on this in the Minnesota media even. Hey. Number 1, the Green Bay Packers purposefully flooded the middle of the field and then didn't tell the Vikings, so they were on the wrong cleats. Yeah, no, that's a thing. That's what I'm saying. That's the allegation that they flooded the middle of the field, right? Look, if you live in Wisconsin, you know that a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we were in a negative 40 deep freeze, okay? And we had some snow on the ground. And then we had 45 degree weather, okay? Science people, help me out. What happens when you got snow on the ground and it's real cold and then it's not real cold and it's above freezing? It melts, right? So you don't need rain to fall out of the sky the day before the game for the field to be wet if everything around it is melting and the ground is soft. I would think fans from Minnesota don't need that explained to them on that level, yet here we are. Also, it's not a matter of the Packers flooding the field so that the Vikings wear the wrong cleats. Again, the Minnesota Vikings are from Minnesota. Y'all, you've played on this field before. So many of you. Did Zadarius Smith not give any tips about how to play on a January like Lambeau? Come on. Lambeau Field is annually accredited as one of the top playing surfaces in the NFL. It is one of the last fields in the NFL to use its hybrid system of both artificial grass mixed in with real natural grass to form what is considered a natural playing field. Stop it. Stop it with your nonsense. Number two thing that I've seen out there a ton, Minnesota Vikings fans saying that the NFL planned for this, that it's all been planned all along, that the Packers get the ratings, so of course the NFL wants them in the playoffs. So the NFL purposefully gave the Packers a difficult schedule in the middle of the schedule and then an easier schedule at the end, including 2 home games to end the season. Stop it. Oh, and then the last thing is they're really angry, like I mentioned earlier, just like Justin Jefferson, that Jaire Alexander didn't get hit with a taunting penalty. Yeah, but like the ref got hit by a helmet by Justin Jefferson, and that wasn't called. And don't get me wrong, I actually like how the game was officiated for the most part yesterday. I thought like there was a lack of defensive pass interference being called on both sides. I thought that it was an aggressive game within reason, which is what it's supposed to be. So I actually like, for the most part, how it was officiated. So I'm just saying, you can't complain about Jaire not getting a taunting or Jaire holding Justin Jefferson and then watch Christian Watson get downright assaulted in the end zone and not have a gripe about that. It's just nonsense. So moving on. Here's the good news. Shout out for Jaire Alexander and the rest of the entire group that contributed to covering Justin Jefferson. Yeah, make no bones about it. Jefferson's a really good receiver. No doubt about it. But Jaire did his job. In the game, Justin Jefferson was targeted 4 times. He wound up with 1 catch for 15 yards. What I found incredibly interesting is who was covering him on each of those targets. Jaire Alexander, yeah, he was targeted once. No catches. Quay Walker was targeted in his coverage of Jefferson twice. Gave up no receptions. And then Adrian Amos did cover that last target and give up the 15-yard catch. So shout out to the whole group. Shout out to the safety group playing over the top. Rudy Ford did a lot of that, sneaking in to help take away the in routes for Jefferson. This was a beautifully orchestrated performance by the Packers defense. And not only is it Jaire Alexander and the rest of the back end, it's Joe Barry. Matt LaFleur said in his press conference just this afternoon that ever since the second half in Miami, like the second half started and all of a sudden this back end of the defense especially, but the whole defense started communicating better and just got locked in together. And we've been saying all year that the secondary has had a ton of miscommunications. So if that can get ironed out, maybe they're peaking at just the right time. Detroit will be an excellent test to find out. Also, side note, Jaire really backed up his talk. I know not all Packer fans love Jaire for that angle alone. They feel like he's too cocky. Yes, I see this a lot out there. But he backed it up. No doubt about it. He was smothering Jefferson on the line of scrimmage, playing a ton of press man, or I should say playing a ton of press. And when it was man, he took advantage. I loved the aggression from the Green Bay secondary. It's what we've been calling for all year. So nice to see it actually come into fruition when it's needed the most. Next up, here is a get out. Yeah, that blocked punt. I mean, and you go back and rewatch it, and I'm not sure, maybe only Rich Bisaccia and the players know for sure who is at fault, like 100% unequivocally, but it really looks like Jack Coco just got overwhelmed from the long snapper spot, and then Dallin Levitt had like his choice of multiple Vikings to try to block, and couldn't do it, which I don't blame him at all. And I'm not even pitting the blame on Jack Coco either. I'm not sure where the fault lies, but look, I mean, I don't understand how a team with such an elite offensive line and good offensive line depth, and I know the punt like formation is not just all O-linemen. Like I get it, but I still don't understand how a team with such a good offensive line and good depth on the offensive line struggles so much in blocking that aspect of football. I don't get it. Maybe even bring Butkus over to help Bisaccia. I no matter what I say here, I'm going to sound really ignorant to the process. So I'm just going to stop. But like realistically, I just don't get it. And it does need to stop. Now, luckily, shout out to Dallin Levitt for having the awareness to not only get his butt kicked in that block, but then get back there and get the ball, find it, down it, not let the Vikings just scoop that up for a touchdown, because then the defense came out, stood its ground. Hey, that was a 4-point swing. Next shout out goes to Kenny Clark. Said in pregame that Minnesota was hurting on the interior with their center out, with a struggling pass protecting guard, and Kenny Clark needed to come in and dominate, and boy did he. This is a very strong performance by Kenny Clark, a game-wrecking type performance that, he's been trending back up since his midseason lull, but still, it's just great to see him be dominant in the stretch. Next, shout out, Keyshawn Nixon. Yes, the blocking in front of him, this was Moses and the sea. Like, it just opened up, and Nixon took advantage. He saw the lane that was forming. The blocking was done beautifully. Jay Feely, the former NFL kicker, reviewed this play on Twitter. He talked about how the Vikings coverage was about as bad as you can be on teams. But hey, even when other teams do something wrong, the good teams take advantage. And they did. The Packers blocked it very, very well. Nixon then parted through, broke the tackle from the kicker, and finally, who should be the all-pro kicker, is getting it one to the house. By the way, side note, if you haven't seen the news yet and you want to get involved, Keyshawn Nixon is doing a private signing with Waukesha Sports Cards. Head to their website, just search Waukesha Sports Cards on Google. Maybe I'll get the details for you on Wednesday. It's a very quick turnaround, though, so if you're interested in getting something signed by Keyshawn Nixon, head to Waukesha Sports Cards, and they can help you out. And then shout out number 6. I just got 2 more here. David Bakhtiari and the O-line. I talked in pregame about how important it was to shut down Hunter and Zadarius Smith. David Bakhtiari especially. The crap he has gotten from Packer fans, he has not deserved. He gave up 1 pressure in the game, that coming against Hunter, and he had the highest run blocking grade on the team. What do you want to say about the guy? Look, I get that you may be frustrated that he hasn't played as much as you wanted him in the last 2 years, but he's really, really good at being a left tackle. There's just not much more to say about it. In terms of the entirety offensive line, Bakhtiari gave up 1 pressure. Elton and Myers gave up none. John Runyon Jr. 2. And Zach Tom at right tackle gave up 1. Now, I'm including Tom because Yash only played something like 7 snaps because he hurt his ankle very, very early in the game. Zach Tom came in and replaced him. LaFleur did say in the postgame that Yash could have come back in if he needed to, so no real concern there. By the way, just wanted to point out, Zadarius Smith, the guy who, skipped the pregame handshake, and then after the game, after he got completely destroyed, he didn't even shake any of his old teammates' hands. He just ran into the locker room. Oh, Z. Guess what? He didn't have any tackles, any pressures, any tackles for loss. It's the first game all year that he didn't have any pressures. Shucky darn. Imagine that. And then the last one. I just want to give this last shout out. And this one goes, across kind of the entire thing. And the Packers aren't there yet. They're not in the playoffs. This could still melt down tremendously, and we all know that. But look. Earlier in the season, I made a lot of critiques about the leadership of this team, Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur especially, but some others too. And I stand by all of those critiques because at the time they were incredibly valid. Change was needed. And I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers should have been benched, and I'm not saying Matt LaFleur should have been fired. I've never said those things. The only thing that I said is when the Packers were out of it, it was time to give Jordan Love some play. But even Aaron Rodgers, in his press conference last night following the game, and if you haven't seen it yet, I would encourage you to. Jason Wilde asked a very good question about what his mindset is. What does it mean to him? Now that the Packers have gone on this run, that they're on the verge of making the playoffs potentially, after they were dead to rights at 4-8. What does it mean to him? And he really took his time. And Aaron Rodgers, when he takes his time, when he thinks things through, is an incredibly eloquent and articulate human being. And he said that it's special. He said that he had arrived at a place of peace. That if the Packers are going to be mathematically eliminated, and he didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing, but that Jordan Love was probably going to play. That they were going to be out. And he didn't say it, but maybe he meant he was done too. But he said that this year he was asked to change and increase his leadership. And I gotta say, the last couple games he looks different. He just does. His demeanor on the field looks different. I don't know if it's a conscious choice. I don't know if because winning just pushes around happiness. I don't know if they're so interchangeable. I do believe in momentum. I believe in all these other things. So, I mean, maybe it's possible that just he's happier because they're winning, and they're winning because he's happier, and it's a chicken and egg thing. But, no. A happy Aaron Rodgers is a better Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not even saying he played that well, because in terms of Aaron Rodgers, yesterday was an average game. He missed a lot of throws still. And I'm not talking about just accuracy. I'm saying dudes who were open, he didn't see it. He made some beautiful throws downfield, but this wasn't his best game. But here's the thing. The way that this Packers team is built, if they run the ball well and they defend and special teams doesn't blow up, they can win with a perfectly average Aaron Rodgers. The team was built that way. And Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers and company kept the ship steadied to get to the point where they could play like the team was designed to play. And now we're actually seeing it. We're beginning to see it week in and week out that this team is playing how they were built to, and it's working. And now we just hope the good times don't stop. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Lombardi Time Brews. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like, share, subscribe. I know I got to say that stuff. So hit like, share, subscribe, get it out to some friends, and let's keep building a larger and larger Packer community together. Hope you had a wonderful day today. I will be back on Wednesday with more Packers content for you before doing our pregame special on Friday for the game against the Lions. Hope you had a great today, and as always, go Pack Go.